And welcome to the EduWeave Online Education Expo. Welcome back to the visitors and a very warm welcome to the panelists who have joined us now. As you know, this is the third edition of the Expo that we are conducting. And this time again, we have quite a lot of panel discussions that are lined up. One of the most interesting one and one of the most awaited one is this one, which is about homeschooling and alternative education. We are also joined by our student volunteers, Shubhangi and Kirtana, who will also support you in the back end in case of anything that you need for the panelists. So let me hand it over to Shubhangi for the introduction of the moderator, and we'll take it from there. Over to you, Shubhangi, for the introduction.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last panel discussion of the day. I'm Shubhangi, a student volunteer, and I would like to welcome our very beloved moderator, Miss Divya Sundarajan. She is a free-spirited, out-of-the-box thinker and a firm believer in the freedom of expression and deeply committed to education as a lifelong process that ties up various challenges of living into a seamless learning zone. She is currently pursuing a degree in psychology and holds a master's in computer engineering. She weaves her various learning and interests into learning experiences for children through her workshop under the umbrella Make Believe Be. Where she is a co-founder. Her workshop topics range from cooking to woodworking and many things in between. We welcome you, ma'am.
Muted, Divya.
Yeah, ma'am, you mute.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shubhangi, for that lovely segue into my session. And I cannot express how lucky I consider myself because, like, this panel with, Sandhya, Prakash, and Rhythm, I'm sure, there's a lot of people who would love to be the person sitting in my seat. So I consider myself very privileged to be the moderator for this session. To talk about our panelist itself, we have Prakash, who's the founder of BME, and his tryst with alternative education happened about 17 years ago when he was looking for a preschool for his daughter. And I don't even know how alternative education scene was 17 years ago, but that's how long he's been in it. And before that, he has worked for 15 years in the software industry. And as a parent, he got associated with other alternative spaces like Genie Kids, Aro. He went to Learning Societies Unconference in Pune, where he also got introduced to environments like Sudbury Valley School, Summerhill Literature in the year 2013. LSUC in itself is a transforming experience, and it had a very similar experience on him as well. And he's been exploring child-led learning methodologies in general and democratic schooling in particular. He started BME 7 years ago, and he's a lover of adventure and math, and also leads adventure projects for children at the BME environment. We welcome you, sir. Thank you so much for being here. And our next panelist is Rhythm Agarwal, founder director of the Atelier. Atelier has branches in Guwahati and Bangalore, which she has conceptualized, which came from her strong conviction that learning is a lifelong should be driven around the values of respect, collaboration, and research. As a learning coach, she also runs workshops with teachers and parents for personal and professional development, the aims of which is to empower adults to empower children. Rhythm, before she started or before she moved on to Atelier, was in the field of actuarial consulting for the first phase of her professional career. And then we have Sandhya Vishwan, who especially in this arena needs absolutely no introduction. She is our beloved admin from Bangalore schools. She is the director of BSEI and of Madpai Education and is an expert in early education. She is the go-to person for homeschooling in Bangalore and in India in general. She has homeschooled 2 of her sons. And she's been awarded multiple things by multiple educational institution for her contribution. She also has the background of being an engineer and a psychologist. So if you are wondering education options for your children, she also counsels parents for that. And I mean, we are thrilled to have both Rhythm and Sandhya here. Okay, now may I first invite Mr. Prakash to share a few lines about your environment. I think it's most appropriate if you share about something so close to your heart.
Thank you, Divya, for the introduction. Good evening, everybody. BME is a democratic schooling environment, and we started this 7 years ago. And the core principle of BME is the choice that we give to children to learn what they want, how they want, and then at what pace they want, and with whom they want to learn with, whether it's a mentor or teacher or facilitator, whatever you call. Okay, so they can choose the mode of facilitation for themselves. Yeah. So for everything what we do in BME, including the running of the school, we involve children in terms of various committees that we form, and children have that power to initiate certain things in the environment, be it project, be it arranging an outstation trip, be it resolving conflicts within the environment. So we have a judiciary system, so children involved in resolving conflicts. So the choice and the drive from children is what we nurture, and that's what we believe firmly that that's what drives learning for children. I think that's a short introduction. I think then we can take.
I mean, democracy and children is not something we hear of very often. Can you tell us, maybe give an example, or how this goes on in your environment? It's very curious, right? Mostly we believe children need to be told, not asked. So can you tell us a little bit, how does that happen in your environment?
Yeah, so like I said, there is a lot of space for children to take initiative, and it starts with even when we start a new semester every year, or a second semester of the year. We start with the goal setting process. So children decide what they want to learn for next 2, 3 months, 4 months, and we have from our side, from BME, adult space. We provide certain elective courses, and then we provide some experts in different learning corners where children can come and explore certain things. So everything is around okay, if I, as a child, I have a buffet available in terms of elective courses and the learning corners, and I can sign up for a course, and then if I sign up, then I stick to that commitment for over 3 to 4 months. And learning corners is a slightly less commitment driven space where children can come for this week and then explore something with the faculty available in that space, and then next week I can move on to something else. And then we have learning corners like science corner, art and craft corner, carpentry workshop, and then geography corner. Then there is a kitchen. So the choice is inbuilt in the environment.
I like how there is one area where if you are committed, you better stick to it, kind of this one. But there is also, it's rather nice that there's a gradation, right? Like on the one end, when we have a very free environment, and perhaps this is something that happens in the parents' mind more than it does happen elsewhere. We do have a concern, like, will they actually, will they just become a little bit, like happy-go-lucky kind of a thing, will they actually start honoring these things? So it's rather nice that you have a place like that. But there is also, if I'm not sure as yet, perhaps I could take up something in the learning corner to see if I want to commit to it. Is that how it goes?
Yes.
Right. That's also wonderful. And there's a little bit of me that whenever I hear about spaces like this, that goes like, why was this not there when I was a kid? But it's great that it's there for our children and the next generation. Thank you. Sandhya, homeschooling. Let us talk a little bit about homeschooling. Uh, and perhaps taking from what Prakash said, does homeschooling mean that the children, do they follow a curriculum, and do they have to follow a curriculum? How do you go about picking that for a child?
Okay. So personally, I'm an unschooling parent, and both my boys are very different from each other. So you would, if you looked from the outside, you would think my older son is disciplined and there's a culture, there's a structure, but that's what he required. He felt the need for it, while my younger one is the more bindas a person there who has absolutely no routine or structure unless he wishes for it, which he doesn't, and sometimes we have to insist on it. So homeschooling in general, when you ask me about the curriculum or a structure, or I think you were trying to ask about the discipline, which is what most parents
Yes.
tend to think.
Without using the words, yes.
Yeah. So, but that's what it is, and we have to accept, because they do insist on or expect that discipline is a part of life. However, as Prakash also mentioned, when you give them the freedom but also give them the boundary, they form their own discipline within that, and each one has a different kind of discipline. And I've seen that with both my boys. They're very different, but they're responsible. They're responsible for what they do if they choose to take it up. And curriculum wise, again, I don't believe in having to work on academic skills in the lower ages. So I believe by the age of 12, 13, if they have their basic skills of reading, writing, comprehension, and basic arithmetic in place, they can start preparing for any exam if they choose to. Again, as Prakash said, the goal setting starts then. They're old enough to be able to decide what they want to do, or have a conversation with you to be able to help them decide. So I don't think there is a one kind of homeschooling. Each family that I know is very different. Even the structured ones, the unstructured ones, eclectic ones, the ones in between, all of this. But the main thread that runs is the fact that I wouldn't say child-led or following the child, but there's a lot of communication on what do you need. And it evolves. Even as adults, we have this question, right? We talk to friends, we talk to family. There's always either conflict or a difference of opinion, but how do we work around it and fit into the unit is the main thing that follows in every family that I've seen, whatever approach or no approach they follow.
So perhaps then there is I can homeschool but still follow a traditional curriculum, but I can also homeschool as an unschooling parent, wherein I may pick and choose parts of a curriculum or may not. Is that does
Yes.
that sound about right? Okay.
Yes.
But when I hear that, it sounds wonderful. However, when I think as a parent, how much time commitment is it going to be? Can a household with actually two working parents manage homeschooling? Do you see that happen often?
I see that question often, and it totally depends on what career option both the parents are having. And if in the younger early years, definitely either one parent or some caretaker needs to be around a young child. But 12 and above, they can still work around. However, I find that if two working parents are able to homeschool, the opportunities that the children get is really wider than anybody else, because they would be exposed to, if they're able to homeschool, they would be exposed to all these environments that the parents are working with. And again, coming to that, like I said, certain cases where both parents are working. If one is an entrepreneur, or both of them are, or or they work at a place where their timings are flexible, that one person can be around just to, even when they're older, just to be there for the child when it is required, not necessarily to be teaching or taking care of things. In those cases, yes, if they're homeschool, if they're working also, both parents are working, it's possible. And especially if they're like us, where we don't have a curriculum that we are working towards, we don't have academic goals. I really don't. And that is actually all about the parent letting themselves go. The moment, what I have seen is the moment, somebody, a parent is born, they tend to take on the responsibility of the child, and they think they need to do everything for the child. And that's where it leads to finding the right school, finding, even when they're homeschooling, what's the right curriculum? I don't want my child to miss out. They're going the other extreme, which is not the case. It's about, and I this is something that I did myself as a parent, and I came out of it. And the moment that I released myself from those responsibilities, I realized my children were much more free and able to do what they wanted to do. So I think the journey is more about us than them. And when we let go, they have their own journey. Otherwise, it is our expectations and our goals, whatever be it. Some children do work better in a structure or a school or whatever, but the moment we let go, we are able to look at them as another individual. And that's the beauty of spaces like ours or homeschooling, if we are able to do that.
Sure. I mean, I do have a question for Prakash on how he feels, about parents, or how parents in his environment feel about the letting go and the this one about it. Um, can you share? Because she's talking about like how in homeschooling, and perhaps there it comes from within the parent. How does it happen in your environment?
Yes, I think the way Sandhya shared, different parents go through different journeys, and each child needs that different space around them. If her own two children, she gave an example, right? Like, okay, one is disciplined or structured and organized, and the other one is free flow, spontaneous, probably, right? So in BME also we have those kinds of children, and then definitely for parents, it's always in the review meetings, we come to know that, okay, oh, my child is like this, okay, how can we cater to that? My child is like this, how can we cater to that? So
do the parents come in, are they already in a space of acceptance towards the philosophies, or is that like you join and then
when they come for admissions, we see that there is a certain inclination, and there is a lot of awareness that is being created of late in last 8 to 10 years that I have seen. And only thing is, I think there is a lot of literature and a lot of talking about these alternate methodologies. What I see is, yes, when we read something, then we get excited. And then there is I think we should have a similar education for my child. So that's how parents come in, which is good to one extent. But then when the rubber meets like the road, that's when okay, how intentions are good, idea is good, but when the practical things come, and when we really give the freedom that we are talking about, then the butterflies start. And that's a journey, and then we have accepted that that's the part of our journey, and then we keep working with parents. We keep having dialogues with parents every now and then talk about these aspects, and that's part of the journey for them as well.
Sorry. So it's as much about working with the parents as is with working with the children for your environment.
Yes. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the democratic environment that BME offers. But as far as I understand, BME does not follow a particular philosophy. Is that right? Like a learning philosophy?
I think it is. Uh, I think if you look at philosophy, I think there is in
Or is
alternate
it like you
methodology.
have an amalgamation of philosophies?
Yeah, it is bound to happen, and anything we try to put it in a particular bucket, then I think we are trying to typecast the method, because we also started with certain ideas, and then we are evolving every year. And this year we might feel okay, we are more doing this, and then next year we might do something else. I think what is important is to start with a journey with a certain ideology, and then see what kind of children we are working with, and then look at the children's needs, look at parents' needs, and then see what best we can do for our context within our.
So you don't want to be like tethered to one kind of methodology, and you would rather have like, a very evolving
Yes.
process for
Yes.
each family.
Yes.
So to say.
Right. Right. And because I think in the end, actually, life does not work in a particular methodology. I think we have all kinds of people. We have all kinds of preferences. We believe in different things, and that's the diversity of life. I think we need to cater to that. We need to respect that, and then we need to work with that.
Absolutely. Okay. It looks like we've lost rhythm for a bit. So I am going to address my questions to Sandhya is also, she's here. Okay. So perhaps this is more of a general question. Again, something that most parents have. Oh, rhythm is back. Let me just
Maybe
catch
yes.
her. Yes.
Yes, please.
Rhythm, we were just talking about Be Me, and how they have a more, they don't necessarily adhere to one particular philosophy. Atelier, on the other hand, is a Reggio Emilia inspired environment. And can you share a little bit about Reggio Emilia and why it's Reggio Emilia inspired?
Sure, Divya. So yes, the Atelier is a Reggio Emilia inspired space, and that's the core of where our beliefs and values come from. And then over the years, we've also grown to learn about different education practices that are followed across the world and integrated some of that into our way of thinking. And from being Reggio inspired, a certain Atelier way of learning has emerged. What is the Reggio Emilia philosophy? It's named after a small town in northern Italy called Reggio Emilia. And the philosophy emerged there a little post the Second World War. And that's really the root of where the philosophy comes from. It's so what legends say is that the first Reggio school was built brick by brick, with a group of parents and teachers coming together with their own hands, because schools and buildings at that time had been demolished during the war. So it really, that sense of community between parents and educators is at the heart of what the Reggio philosophy is. Why are we inspired by the Reggio Emilia philosophy? That's because of, when we were getting our ideas together about the Atelier, what was important for us is to create a learning environment where children's innate sense of wonder, their curiosity, and their humaneness is preserved, and it grows over their years of learning, rather than getting stifled by external pressures that get added with education, and that we've come to know what education as. And that's when we heard about the Reggio approach, and I've visited Reggio Emilia and the schools there a few times over these last few years. There's certain core ideas which then now the Atelier revolves around, and the first is the image of the child. And when we as educators and parents look at a child, what image do we form of this person or this group of people in front of us? And what we believe is that children are very intelligent, capable, motivated, keen to grow individuals. And that is the image with which we work with children. So every day that we come into work, we feel more and more inspired to work with these very, very intelligent people who we in front of us. And that's the relationship that then centers everything that we do. And this image, if you see, is really in contrast with what conventionally we've sort of come to understand children as, you know, that they're little people, they don't know how, they don't know what, they need to be told, they need to be controlled, they need to be taught. And just in just saying these two different things in two different ways, I literally felt the energy in my body change. and when we as adults approach children from one of these two images, you can just imagine what that conversation would then be like. And that's our effort, is to stay with the first one, to stay with that positive, rich image of who the child is.
So what I hear from both Prakash and Rhythm is how much it is about, you know, it's a family commitment to go through with an alternative school as much as it is homeschooling. But in homeschooling, it is very evident that, you know, you are taking it up for yourself and, you know, for your family. But for any alternative journey, it is as much the parents' responsibility to continue to, you know, grow in that space. So how do you, you know, do that for your parents? Like, because it does very much sound like, you know, parents are going to need some like facilitating and from time to time be told like, it's all fine kind of thing. So how does that happen? Like, do you have regular meetings or?
Yes, we do. That's apart from working with children, working with parents is a constant effort for us. And this journey begins with the first time parents visit us. It's the first time when we're sharing with them about what the atelier is and the work that we do here and what our beliefs and values are. And we're very transparent with that process. We're very clear about what we do and what we don't do. And that's the first step, is to build this relationship of transparency and open communication with each other. And it begins right before an admission takes place. It needs to begin at that point where we commit to each other that this is what we do, and are we aligned in what in our vision of what we see for our children over the future. Post that, it's a constant effort of being in relationship with each other. You know, it's this process of we-ness that we experience between the children, us, and the parents, and this triangle being in balance is a constant. You know, if it sometimes gets tipped and you bring it back to balance. We also do home visits. So within the first months of the children spending time with us, we haven't been able to do that over the pandemic though, but that's what we would do, is that we would visit the children's homes, because we've gotten to know the child a little bit, we've gotten to know the parents, but just visiting the home takes the relationship up a level. It gives us an insight into who this child's world is at home, because these are the two primary environments for children. It's the home and then it's the school. So that's a place of contact. And then we constantly hold workshops with parents of building awareness, of reminding each other why we have partnered for this journey together. And it's really a process of trust. So our community is also centered around the values of care, respect, and trust towards each other. And it's about reminding parents that, you know, we can trust the innate capability that exists in your child. So trust that, and hey, like, you know, step back. If we trust children enough to let them be and let them learn at their own pace, at their own time, they'll be fine. So that's a balance that we strive for.
So one thing that I'm noticing in this discussion is about not just the kids, but the parents are also treated with respect and, you know, with being taken into consideration. And, you know, overall, when the philosophy for education is not like you need to be taught and told, that applies as much for the parents. And it's really nice and refreshing to know that, you know, it is not about like you don't have to go to a parent teacher meeting wondering like, oh gosh, what are they going to bring up this time? So Prakash, how about like in your environment, do you have like parents coming in and saying like, you know, oh, I want my child to do this, or, you know, this is what I want my child to learn in this particular quarter or something like that? Or, how do you go about like coming up with these projects?
I think I lost your connection. Your question is, if parents wish something for their children, how do we go about it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Parents can have their own goals for their children, and they may have their wish list for their children. But we make it very clear in BIMI when they come, it is children's decision finally. So if you want your child to do something, then you have a dialogue with child, and then you get a buy-in from them, and then we are there to support. But don't come and ask that, okay, I want this for my child, and then, okay, you do it for us. Okay, so it comes in different forms every now and then. So we stick to our fundamental thing that, okay, this finally it has to be from child. Whether child brings a goal for himself or herself on their own by looking at maybe getting inspired by peers, getting inspired by something what they watch in online TV, or maybe somebody role model nearby, or it could be something in line with what they are talking about. I think some children are also sensitive. Okay, they sense it. They sense that, okay, oh, my parents are
Right.
wishing for this. Okay, some children are sensitive, and then they take up that. They know that, okay, the parents want it, but they don't want to do it. That's also clear. So all kinds of possibilities are there.
So
So
another
finally,
avenue for conflict resolution right there, I guess.
yes. And I think that's where I think we also we ask parents to have an open dialogue with their children to come to a conclusion about, okay, anything that they want for their children. So that's the only way. I think nobody can make anybody learn anything or do anything. Actually, it's just not possible. It's not fair to do that.
Yeah.
May I just ask something? It just crossed my mind to Prakash and Rhythm. As you all were speaking about the orientation and dialogue with the parents, in my consultations, what I've generally seen is parents choose an alternative space because they're very clear on what they do not want. They're not very clear on what they want.
Yes.
And once they are in the space, they don't realize that's not what they want. What they think is, this is not right. They sign up for something and they realize this isn't what they thought it was. And just like we have the conventional spaces where academics is the goal, they think all alternative spaces are the same with similar, different kinds of goals. And however, it might not be the case, as we just saw. The Atelier and BIMI are very different from each other, yet they are similar in the the basic principles or what we do. So have either one of you all faced this kind of issue with any of the parents, or are you very clear on who comes into your space?
Parents come with a certain clarity, and then as I told, okay, when rubber meets road, then there is all things coming out. And then, as you mentioned, they are clear what they don't want when they come in, and then slowly what they want also start coming out slowly. And I think it's fine. And I think it's our job, and we have realized that, okay, it is going to be part of our job continuously, ongoingly, that they will come with their wish list. And I think it's our job to work with them and then keep reinforcing the idea with which we are working with children. And in some cases, we need some handholding because they are clueless, because they don't have prior experience. I think it's all part of the game. And we have seen, I think, over a period of time, parents do get they get to see that, okay, oh, we are working with a particular philosophy. And then we have also seen that, okay, beyond a certain point, parents, if there is their thoughts are not matching with what we are doing, or their needs are met for a particular duration of their stay in Beamy, and then they say, okay, oh, now it's probably time to move out, and then probably seek some other structured method or some other space. And I think that's fair enough, because maybe child's needs change over a period of time. And then also as a parent, okay, my idea of education for my child also might evolve over a period of time. And I think that's fair. And ultimately, it's in the interest of children's need, like in catering to children's need, as well as parents, because the parents are important stakeholders in children's education. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had, almost the same experience of what Prakash shared, so I don't have too much to add to it. But what I do want to say is that the first year is very important for any parent who takes the leap into alternative education to be very, very observant of what is happening over the first year, to understand the school as a community, to understand the educators, to understand what it means for the child. And we've seen every family who's partnered with us go through that journey over the first year of gradually beginning to understand what this means for the child and for them as a family. So to keep patience over that first year, to really be observant and understand and partner with the school as actively as possible, and then take a decision. Of course, there is that reassessment of one's needs as a family that you would do at the end of every year, or at the end of a certain phase of the child's life, at the end of early years, at the end of primary years, and then see what would suit the child and the family best.
Just to add one or two more points, we have what Rhythm is doing in their school. First year is crucial, and what we have done, what we have started doing from this year is orienting parents over a period of about 5 to 6 months. We have sessions, those who join freshly, over 6 months. Once a month, we take up a topic which is part of the BME philosophy, and then we go over that idea. And then we also give some reading material, video material, and then also some exercises to do along the journey for that 5 to 6 months. Like it's as simple as observe your child, how child is doing what is doing for over next 1 month, and then you document your observations, and then come back, and then we will discuss that. And there we try to see how, like, am I observing with judgment or without judgment? Like, am I like, okay, is there, if I have a judgment, if I have some evaluation about how child is doing, then certainly my response will be tuned to that judgment. In like whether I accept or not, it will be tuned to that. So we try doing that for over 5 to 6 months, and that is one. And then we have once in 2 months we have study circles where we meet and then take a topic, and then sometimes it could be a debate kind of a thing, and then okay, we are talking for and then against that. Not really in the form of a debate, but it's actually trying to express how I see this matter this way or that way, and all opinions, all feelings are valid. And then we try to see, okay, how do we actually look at it in a holistic manner? And then there are no solutions per se, but by mere expression, by mere participating in the dialogue, I think each one derives their own in like whatever insights and then action for them.
So what I hear is like it's a considerable amount of effort for a parent to go through the alternative journey, but at the same time there is enough handholding and potentially a very enriching process for the parent and their own self as well, right?
Yes.
So yeah, another question that so there are some, like, when we hear of alternative spaces, one of the things that parents have is, what does it mean for me? Like how patient should I be? How, what is the expectation out of me? And I think the other, not a question, perhaps a thought that I have encountered is that it is perhaps for slow learners or children with learning difficulties or there is a special need because of which they have chosen the alternative journey. In your experience, how far you think that holds true? Or do you even think that, this is appropriate for, every single like slow learner or any, because I'm sure even when you have your inquiries, you would have experienced that, there is a certain perception. I would really like to hear your thoughts on that. And all three of you, Sandhya, Prakash, and Rhythm, about what that is.
Okay, we're all looking at each other. Who's going first? Okay, so quickly on this note, I do think some parents, very few. It's not a very general thought process that these alternative spaces are only for special needs. They do think it is for everybody who doesn't want a structure, but not necessarily special needs. However, just this perspective and point that I would like to make is, in certain cases of neurodiversity, they do require a structure. They do require help, support, and repetition, which is possible in a conventional system. And those children would be benefited there if it was a proper inclusive space, that is, than being in a more free space. The reason being, their faculties to be able to take those kind of choices and decisions, and also probably to be able to articulate, might not be, they might not be ready for it. And then it kind of clashes with the philosophy that an alternative space holds, unless they also have a framework where they can work individually with each child separately. If that's not possible, these children will not fit into an alternative space. And that's a group even within the neurodiverse group that I'm talking about. I mean, I'm sure I don't know what Bhimi and Rhythm Ateliers experience is, but this is something that I have seen. Of course, Bangalore schools, I've spoken to a lot of parents, my consultations as well, and there are certain, this where the structure is important. An alternative space might not be able to help.
Thank you for that, Sandhya. I think, yeah, it makes sense, right? Like, just like any board is not for any child, any learning philosophy or any learning environment or methodology, it isn't necessarily tied to a particular, there's no one solution fits all kind of a thing. But I think it's also important to note that there is value in structure for children with learning difficulties, and parents would do well to know and understand that as well, right? Yeah. So
I just have a brief perspective to add to that. That
yes,
while this is the perspective that children, neurodiverse children need structure. Well, what I want to extend that to is that all children need a certain amount of structure. Structure brings a sense of predictability and safety and certainty in our lives. So when we talk about alternative schools, there's also this notion that everything's sort of, we're freewheeling through our days from, 1 month to the next month. It isn't that. We all work with a lot of intention, and there is a certain flow and structure that even alternative spaces have. Now, even within, whether it's a neurotypical child or a neurodiverse child, different children have different needs of the amount of structure they need. Some children have an internal structure which is built very early on, which they're then able to exercise. Some children need a certain amount of external structure to then create boundaries and create a sense of a sense of impulse control for themselves. Now that applies to neurodiverse children as well. They need a certain structure, they need more invitations from adults around them. But I've also seen neurodiverse children thrive in our environment because along with that one-on-one attention and meeting the child's needs where they are, they also get a space which respects them completely and which allows choice, which actually a lot of neurodiverse children do not have, because there is a constant need of tangibility, of wanting to see the child grow. And, of course, it is challenging for every family and every parent out there, and you're just looking for some win. And that then makes you want to pace the child up by repeating exercises over and over again. But if we really allow neurodiverse children to go through their own pace and their own journeys and still support their autonomy, it can be an amazing journey.
Some thoughts from my side. Again, slow learning. Again, are we looking from only academic perspective, or there is also general life skill perspective? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so if I just look from the entire perspective spectrum, now whether as a person, okay, am I even inclined to learn certain skill? So forget about whether slow or fast. So maybe I'm not even made for it, or I don't. That's not my inclination to learn that particular thing. So now, are we being sensitive about this, and then are we taking care of this, and then not try to push child to do something? I think that's very important. Otherwise, I think this reminds me of one quote by Einstein, where he says, "Okay, if I'm measuring fish by how high fish can climb on a tree, I think fish will end up being like feeling that, okay, it's foolish or stupid for the entire life." Yeah. So now I can't expect fish to learn climbing, right? So similarly, I think, yes, I do understand there is a societal a certain expectation for our children, but I think let's also be sensitive that, okay, my child may be inclined to learn certain things in a very structured way, or in a passionate way. Some other things, maybe my child is not so inclined at this point of time, and then can we give that space for my child, and then maybe child has a certain time in future will come back to this at some point, or may not come back. I think, yeah.
A beautiful perspective. Thanks for that, Prakash. And I also like, Rhythm, how you mentioned that the structure is not just for, it is beneficial for all children, and also how perhaps alternative spaces, they aren't really like, freewheeling, and it's not like any day can, oh yeah, you want to do that, let's do that kind of a thing. It's not how it goes. As even Prakash mentioned initially about how you have like the spaces where you have to value your commitment, and so it's not one extreme in any case, right? So in terms of learning philosophies, and this one, like we hear of a lot of Montessori schools and even Waldorf often enough, but Reggio Emilia, and this question is for you, Rhythm. Reggio Emilia isn't something that many of us have actually heard of, but apparently it is there in other countries as well. And can you tell something about the, how prevalent it is, and are there other schools in Bangalore or India that follow the approach, and help us understand that a bit?
Sure. The thing that sets the Reggio philosophy a little bit apart from Montessori or Waldorf is that the Reggio Emilia approach is not a methodology. It isn't a step-by-step manual of instructions or materials or processes that needs to be followed. It is a way of life. It is a way of thinking and believing. And also, if you note, we call ourselves Reggio inspired. We don't say that we follow the approach, or we're not affiliated to the Reggio Emilia approach in any way. We take inspiration from the work at the schools in Reggio Emilia, and we make our own meaning of it, and then we implement it based on our context here. And that's what is different, and that's why we don't hear of the Reggio philosophy a lot. And then and there has been this mushrooming of more awareness around the Reggio Emilia approach, not just in India, but across the world. So it isn't that it's lesser known in India, it's lesser known across the world as well as an education philosophy, because it then really, the onus lies with the school to make their own meaning of it, to create their own sets of principles and their own processes around the Reggio Emilia approach. So that is why it's lesser known, and that's why we don't hear of it as much.
Questions from the audience. We are open to taking them. Please do drop your questions if any. Meanwhile, Sandhya, can you tell us a little bit about how a homeschooling parent can prepare a child for higher studies, or perhaps even someone who is moving from an alternative schooling and to a 10th grade or a 12th grade or college? And I believe one of your sons who was homeschooled has gone on into a college, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that journey.
Okay, so as I said, around the age of 12, 13, many of us have the discussion. We decide what is the next goal, what does the child want to do personally. Again, in my older son's case, we did sit down and talk about this. He was the one. I personally couldn't care less about the exams. Him being gifted in music and doing it quite well, I as a parent wanted him to explore more. However, he chose to take the exams. He wanted to do it. So we started working. I wouldn't say he started working on the structure that he required for the exam. So unlike
so this is like kind of a reverse, right? Instead of the child saying, I don't want to, and the parents saying,
yes.
But it was still an adjustment from your end in terms of your expectations.
Yes, exactly. Even at the time when he went back to school, we had to force him then. This was our personal situation where we had to put him back to school, and he did not want to go to school. But 1 year later, when we said you can continue homeschooling if you want to, he said, no, I need to prove a point. So initially, as I said, it is also, if you are open to it, for a parent to be evolving as a parent, as a parent of a 1-year-old or a toddler, and then as a parent of a middle schooler or of that age and a high schooler, as your children grow, you also grow as a parent and evolve as a parent. So coming to the exams, if the question is, do homeschool children go on to higher studies as we know it, regular, career path? Yes, it's not only alternative careers that homeschoolers choose. We do have a few, but yes, many of the families choose an alternative path. The children tend to think out of the box, but at the same time, there are who are innately good in conventional careers and want to do it, and they do start preparing. By the time they're 12, 13, they are able to make their choices or decide this is what I want to do. So for example, MIT, Malavika Joshi got into MIT. She's unschooled. She hasn't written a single exam. She hasn't written a 10th grade exam or 12th grade exam or NIOS or anything.
Oh, wow.
And she graduated from MIT in 2020. They wanted her.
Impressive.
In fact, it wasn't the other way. If a child in India does want to take up the competitive exams, they can prepare for the qualifying exam, the 10th, 12th. And in that, I would like to point out that not all the boards allow private candidates to take the exam. We have generally, besides some state boards, generally we just have 2 options for the 10th grade, the NIOS, which is the National Institute of Open Schooling, and we have the, not the Cambridge, the UK curriculum. There are 2 different boards there as well. Cambridge is more popular in India, though we have the Edexcel from Pearson Group as well. So these 2 exams private candidates can take. NIOS, it's very flexible. Almost all the options are available. For the IGCSE, certain subjects, a private candidate, which requires practical work or practical assessment through the year, those subjects cannot be opted for. Now coming to 12th grade, again, I would, at this present point, I would suggest only the NIOS which is not only flexible, it is from the government of India and recognized everywhere. The AS and A levels, which is the UK curriculum's equivalent to 11th and 12th, the only issue at this point of time for 12th graders is if they've taken it as a private candidate, it is not, it's a recognized exam in India. However, if it is taken as a private candidate, it's not recognized. So they will not get the equivalency certificate for higher studies in India. However, private candidates can go abroad with the certificate.
Oh, okay.
Study abroad. There's not too much of an issue
It is
in that.
interesting to know, what the path lies ahead, and there is a path ahead.
There is a path ahead. It's just about being informed. But like you started off with, many parents think alternative and start thinking about exams when suddenly the child is 12, 13. I wouldn't term it as gaps, but the moment that comes and the parent gets frightened and moves from an alternative space into a regular space, they are not aware of how to fix what they would call gaps. It's not a gap per se. However, the schools don't know how to accommodate, parents don't know how to support, and that's why it's a gap. So I do see a lot of alternative spaces struggling when it comes to middle school and above, just because though it's possible, it's not impossible. They don't know how to weave the philosophy with the academic requirement. It's possible, but I think
But
maybe alternative spaces need to start thinking about
on those
that
lines.
as well. Yeah.
Sure. We have a question from the audience, and it is that children, due to the pandemic period, are addicted to screens due to being indoors most of the times, and also because the classes are online. So the question is, how does an alternate school deal with this?
Yes, I think this is something we have been hearing a lot. But I think I just want to ask, we all have become addicted to online things. We have webinars online, we have meetings online. We adults also are all occupied with online stuff these days. And so will our children. And it is bound to happen. Yes, we have concerns around that, but right now that's how it is. And probably the moment I think schools open, and I think situation will change. Yes, we can't get away with this concern. The way we are addicted to devices, I think it's human tendency for everyone to get addicted. And if I find it difficult to stay away from WhatsApp, it is same. How can I expect my child to be away from that? Actually, yeah, it's a universal. It's pervasive. It's a problem everyone is dealing with, and I think we need to find a solution. And if I can ask and reflect, okay, how can I reduce, or how is it affecting my day-to-day life and health due to this surrounding online everywhere. I think if I start reflecting, if I talk about that in my family, I think there are solutions available. Yes.
Rhythm, is there something you would like to add on that? About alternative schooling and how, with the pandemic and the online classes and the increased screen time for children?
Sure. So one tangible thing that we did, which is in our control, is limit the hours of online classes that we would have. And we realized that, having children sit in front of the screen for hours together really wasn't a solution to what we were all going through. So the maximum screen time that we've had with children, even in primary years, is a maximum of 1.5 to 2 hours in a day. Otherwise, our average scheduled time was 1 hour a day. We covered what was, and these online, we don't do classes, whether in the physical space or online, but it really was a space for us to come together, connect with each other at a personal basis, share common contexts, and then and our online engagements also wasn't really just the children looking at the screen, but it's about them working with their hands while sharing a common context with their peers in the online space. So that's, as a school, what we could do is that. The other thing is that, like as Prakash shared, this is the reality and the context in which the children are growing up today. Little things that we can do is just having family time, which is off screen, everybody in the family committing to that 1 hour before bedtime or dinner time of really keeping their screens and their devices away and being fully present to each other. Because what children have been missing out is connection, is attention and attunement from their peers, from other adults around in their environment. So whether it's the whole family committing to it or even one parent at a time, you've been handling everything in the world possible, from home chores to work to children at home. But if you're spending even taking out half an hour over your day and saying, this is the time that I'm completely available to my child and my phone is nowhere around me. I'm not checking WhatsApp at that time. I'm not responding to emails. I'm not taking phone calls. And just half an hour. As long as we provide that completely tuned in half an hour to children, that's enough to meet their needs, for them to not have to look for that complete attention from a device, because that does it, right? Like the device is available for them all the time.
So, yeah, I think
so I'd like to add, because Matpai was a experiential space where children were at, little children. So I obviously did not believe, we didn't have screen time at all at Matpai, no audiovisual, nothing. We just worked with developmental areas. So when the pandemic hit, I couldn't do anything online because we worked individually with different children, and we had a student engagement plan with activities sent out to parents that they had to do with the children around them, and probably meet online once a week, like Rhythm said. It was more of an engagement to just get together, talk about what they did, and the parents had to send back observations so that we could help them on how to do the next set of activities. However, I will admit that it was a bigger challenge, though that's what the parents wanted, to keep them away from the screen. But considering one or both parents also working from home with other devices, multiple devices, it was hard for them to manage children at home. See, everything changed during the pandemic. And they had no other option, though they did keep saying, I don't want screen time, but I don't know how to engage the child as well. And there was nothing I could do to help these parents. And just yesterday, interestingly, I read something on one of the alternative groups, because the question was exactly this about gadgets and how do we get them from out of the online sessions and again onto another gadget. There was this comment that said that if you are expecting them to have gadgets and devices all around them and not use them, you really need to think as a parent, just like as Prakash and Rhythm said, you need to rethink where, or probably if you could go to a rural environment and then expect that, makes more sense than to be in a city urban setting and believe that they wouldn't be exposed to this or that they would not be addicted to it. As Prakash said, we are ourselves. We cannot, every moment we are looking at WhatsApp. I must have looked at it 3 times in this session, and it is work. It's not that I was trying to chat. So we are dependent on it for our work, and that's how it is. And again, I'll also say that there's a lot of learning happening there. It's just that the parents are unable to kind of organize it and create a balance on the time that they can be spent. If that is possible from the parents' end, I think, as Prakash pointed out earlier, they are coming with their judgment. If they remove that judgment and be able to see how we both can help each other, it would be something that the parent can think of.
Yeah. So I guess to summarize.
I just want
yes,
to add. Yeah. So it's interesting actually. So why devices are being used. Actually, these are way to get connected with peers. Right now, that's the medium. Like, okay, I cannot play with my friends, and the only way is to get connected. Either it's online gaming, and then okay, I'm here, and then my friend is there, my friends are there, and I just want to point out. Okay, we did a small survey with parents, children last month, and we were like, we want to open Beame physically, but we were not sure whether children are ready to come to Beame. And surprisingly, the one question is like, okay, do you want to come to Beame? 70% want to. They said, okay, we want to come to Beame. 20 said, okay, it's okay, online or offline, and 10% said they want to stay online.
Oh, wow.
So 70% want to come back. That means they know, okay, it's like online has a certain limitation. They need to do something physical in the physical space and connect with peers and facilitators is there. It's just that right now environment is not facilitating that, and they are just waiting for
No,
that.
I guess it all boils down to, offering all of us some grace in this pandemic period, but also, respecting what the child's environment is like. And, it's not the child did not get the idea of TV from or any video, whatever, from it is there in their environment. It is all pervasive. So I like how Rhythm pointed out that, it is undivided attention that, that can actually be remedy to the extra screen time, perhaps. Well, thank you to all the panelists. All three of you were wonderful. I had a wonderful time chatting with you. We do need to wind up, and alternative schooling is kind of like this blanket term which seems to put everything that is not mainstream into it. And I hope in this panel and in this discussion, people have seen snippets into how it could be same but different, and how it relates to concepts of homeschooling, unschooling, and the effort involved in the process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Rhythm.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you,
Thank
Rhythm.
you.
Thank you, Sandhya.
Thanks, Divya. Thanks, Sandhya and Prakash. It was lovely being here and spending the evening with all three of you.
Like,
And with the
Likewise.
audience.
Thank you.
Yes. And thank you. Thanks to the audience too, to spend your Friday evening with us on this. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.